How we doing, people? Hope you are all well. Listen, I hope you had a Merry Christmas and, of course, look forward to the new year. I hope you enjoyed your Boxing Day yesterday with family, those that spent it with them, and, of course, Christmas Day itself. I had an absolute blast. And do you know what was good? Having a couple of days break. Obviously, Christmas Eve we did a stream, but actually to get back on here is nice as well. I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I hope you look forward to the new year. We're going to talk a little bit of football. We're going to talk Arsenal. We're going to talk transfers. We're going to talk rumours and basically off the back of Mikel Arteta's press conference. We're going to discuss that and see where people are at. But I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas as well. A couple of days off, and I felt bad really not actually putting anything out on the channel to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Of course, we did that on Christmas Eve, which you haven't caught up with yet. Make sure that you do. Dan Lawler's giving people banter as ever. Pete and Dan jumping on as best they could from a busy Christmas Eve with their families. And of course, my thanks go to all of those guys as well for every single week sticking with us. Listen, make sure you do us a favor. We're still very, 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 very close to 13K, which is our next target. So make sure you do me a favor, like this, subscribe, and get us as close as you can to it. Big up to everybody in the chat that's here nice and early. Big up to Jake, who says, hope your Christmas was good. Thank you very much, Jake. I hope yours was as well. Thanks to Here's to There. Says, cheers, Dan. Happy holidays. Josh says, fresh trim, Dan. Yeah, for the Christmas, I thought I'd go a little bit shorter and get rid of some of it. Sean says, hi, Dan. Hi to yourself, mate, and Merry Christmas to you. And Reese, come on, you Gunners, says, feel like we hear this every year. Anyway, hope you had a good Christmas, Dan. Likewise, listen, thank you all so much for being here and supporting. Let's get into it, shall we? January is almost upon us. Can you believe it? I mean, it's unbelievable that 2023 has pretty much disappeared and 2024 is being welcomed. We're going to go into this January transfer market with a lot of pressure on Arsenal Football Club. And the reason I say that, it's not just because of the position we're in, but it's because of how we are left with, in Mikel Arteta's words, a little bit short. If you listen to the press conference today, you'll know that Mikel Arteta has basically admitted that we are a little bit short in certain positions. He didn't go into what positions they were. He just mentioned there were a few positions he'd looked to strengthen, and the window is there for that. Now, there was a lot of rumours around Arsenal and FFP. And I want to go on the record to say that I have absolutely no idea what Arsenal Football Club's financial position is. I have no idea whether we're in the red, whether we're in the black, or whether we're just about right. I have no idea whether we've got 150 million sitting there to spend, or if we've got 15 pence to spend. I have absolutely no interest, if I'm honest, in how much we spend on players or how much we give them contract-wise. I never have done because it's not my money. All I want is that we can attract the best players possible to the club and that we are always active and maximise every transfer window. And that's exactly what I think we need to be doing. I can't hear this, oh, we might not have enough money, because Arsenal have just been given over £70 million for their qualification into the last 16 of the Champions League. We're in a position where we've cut our wage bill pretty much in half, if not half again, over the last couple of seasons. We're back in the Champions League. There should be a lot of money. We should be caked, in fact. And Stan Kroenke and Joshua Kroenke ain't exactly scraping the barrel when it comes to money. So Arsenal Football Club should be all right. They should be. There's no excuses with this anymore. I don't like, oh, we haven't really got any money because we spent 100 million on Declan Rice. So let's have a little bit of a think about where he might think we're short, because a lot of people will say it's where we're short right now. But actually, if you read into what he was saying, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. And I'll tell you why. I think Mikel Arteta is looking at the situation in January as, we're going to lose Thomas Partey. He's already injured anyway. We're going to lose Tomiyasu. He's already injured anyway. And we're not going to expect to see either of those two back now, or El Neni, because of Africa, Asian Cup, and of course El Neni going over to the African Cup as well. Timber still isn't going to be fit until they reckon New Year, but when's that? Probably February would be my guess. Probably going to miss January. I feel like there's the ongoing problems with Fabio Vieira. He's still another one. And he mentioned there being 5 players out. And when you count it up, yeah, it's them. It's them. So those 5 are missing. I think we're short in a number of areas. And people want to look at the centre forward position and go, we just need a striker and we're good. I agree, we need a striker, but we ain't good after that. we're definitely short still. And it interests me in what positions you guys in the chat think we're short. So what I want you to do is just tell me whereabouts you feel Arsenal Football Club need to strengthen in January. Whether you think it's one position, two positions, four positions, name them in the chat. Whether you think we need a midfielder, a centre half, a striker, all three. Where do you think we are short? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I actually think there's quite a lot of positions that we're still quite short in. A lot of people in the chat are saying centre forward, some are saying centre midfield, right centre back, striker is the priority, centre forward, midfield. And then Noonan's actually said realistically, Neto, Tony, and Paulinho. Now, do you know what, Noonan? I agree with you, and I normally do agree with a lot of what you said. How much is that going to cost? Have Arsenal got 50 million to spend on Neto? Do they have 75, 80 to spend on Tony? Do they have 80 million to spend on Paulinho? Because that's what Fulham are going to ask. That's what Brentford are going to ask. Do we have 200 million? We've just spent that in summer. Do we have that? This is my question mark on it. So if I had my choice, I'd love those signings. I'd love a centre back on top of that as well. But actually, when you look at it, how much money have Arsenal got to spend? And that leads me nicely to we need to sell. And that's the next thing. Do we need to sell? Is there a place for Smith Rowe? Is there a place for Reece Nelson? Is it time to cash in on Eddie Nketiah? Is Thomas Partey too injury prone? Is there some room for a little bit of movement with some of our players that are out on loan at the moment that we could make permanent? Players like Sambi Lokonga, Tavares, Charlie Patino, is there some movement there? Cedric is still with us. Could that be a few £1 million and off the wage bill gone? Ramsdale is another option in January. I'm not saying we sell all of those players, by the way, because we need a squad, right? If we're going to bring in 2 or 3 players, let's say, but we sell a 6, then we're still miles short. But when we think about how realistically we can try and recoup some funds, it might not be a bad thing to look at the opportunity of getting rid of some of the likes of those players mentioned. Now, personally, I don't really want to see some of them go. I don't really want to part ways with Aaron Ramsdale because I feel that Cole Hine against Brentford when David Raya can't play, is that really where we want to be going? I look at Thomas Partey and I think I'm desperate to see Partey, Rice and Ødegaard in midfield. And Eddie Nketiah, it's fine to say replace him with someone, but if we're not going to get a striker and we're going to sell Eddie and go and use that to buy a midfielder with, then we're short at top again. Even though Eddie's not really someone I rate and love or would love to keep hold of, he has scored some goals for us this season and has done a job when he's come on at times. So we have to be really realistic about this situation. I also think with Emil Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson, there's opportunities for them to look at their future right now. The January market is something they might actually look at and go, do you know what? I'm not ahead of Havertz. I'm not ahead of Saka, Martinelli or Ødegaard either, of course. But Trossard is getting ahead of me also. And Eddie Nketiah is getting ahead of me. So if I'm Reece Nelson and I'm Smith-Rowe, I'm thinking, we're out the Carabao Cup. We're now through the Champions League group stages. There's only really the FA Cup games I've got. And I might get 20 minutes here or there in a couple of Premier League games. Do I want that going into a European Championships? Is Smith-Rowe looking at that and thinking, Southgate, I was on the radar only last tournament. This tournament, I was hoping for more game time. So there's a lot of question marks here. There's a lot of questions to try and allow for our players to think about. Now, I love the fact that Reece Nelson and Smith-Rowe have come through. I love the fact that Hale End, and I know for a fact, after meeting people who know them very well, they love the club. They are literally Arsenal through and through. And I think with Reece Nelson and Smith-Rowe, it would actually hurt them if they left. But at the end of the day, you can't be sentimental for either. You can't be a fan that loves to keep hold of players that aren't getting games. And also, you have to look at Reece Nelson and Smith-Rowe and say, I love Arsenal, but I need to play football. So they're 2 players that we might want to look at. So let's have a look at some of the rumours, because there is a lot of positions that I feel that we are short in, but there's only really 2 or 3 positions that we're being linked with. Let's start with the central midfield position and the centre-back position, shall we? And we'll leave striker, because striker is obvious. It's either going to be an Ivan Toney in this window, or it's going to be an Osimhen in the summer, or an Ivan Toney in the summer. And I don't really think there's much more to say on that, because for me, I feel we need one now. And if somebody said to me, do you want Toney now or in the summer, or maybe we go Osimhen in the summer? Personally, I would rather go and get Toney now, because it means we're talking about this season, not what might Arsenal be like next year. I don't really care about next year. We've got a title to go and win and a Champions League to go and win, yeah, and an FA Cup to go and win. So for me, it's about winning trophies this year. How do we do that? Well, we maximise this window, not the summer one. We maximise this one. Go get Ivan Toney now and make sure that we've done all we can to go and win this Premier League. We can't get Osimhen now. The other options, if Tony isn't available, will probably be somebody like Guy Corres over at Sporting Lisbon. Um, what's his name over at Feyenoord? I've completely forgot his name now. Is it Gutierrez? Somebody like that. Yeah, that would be the other options if Ivan Toney wasn't an option for whatever reason. I think that's the main one for me, right? I think that's the main one. Jimenez, not Gutierrez. Jimenez, that's the guy I'm thinking of. Well done, Jake and Chavi in the chat over at Feyenoord. So for me, that's the position that we should be trying to look at. Everybody that I know that has a smidgen of a link with the club, but I don't claim to be ITKs, say that we're not in for a striker this January and that we're looking at strengthening other positions in midfield and at centre back and at fullback, which leads me nicely to the links of Goncalo Inacio over at Sporting Lisbon. Now, this is a player who's a youngster, who's a centre back, who can play in central defensive midfield. And it's also somebody that can play the role of like a John Stones. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that he's as good as John Stones, of course. He's a lot younger, but it is somebody that can play that role. So he can come in when Saliba's injured, but he can also play in midfield. That, to me, would be a very good signing. We are not the only club in for him. I know for a fact that Liverpool have been looking at him longer than Arsenal. And I also look at where he would like to go as best chance for him to play football. Now, if it's Liverpool and Arsenal, there ain't much there for him to look at because he's not going to get ahead of Kouyate or Van Dijk, and he's probably not going to get ahead of Gabriel or Saliba. So he's going to come in as cover for either Arsenal or Liverpool. The reason I think he might look at Liverpool ahead of Arsenal is just for the reason that they don't really have a number 6 still, and Arsenal do when everyone's fit. When everyone's fit, Partey, Rice and Ødegaard are there. They've still got Jorginho and Elneny that might look to be competition for him. Whereas Liverpool have literally got Endo, and that's it. They've got other players that are playing there that are making them do, like Gravenberch and Alexis McAllister at times has played more deeper. But if I'm honest with you, I think it would probably be Liverpool that he might look at. Because if you look at Arsenal and Liverpool season right now, they're quite level pegging, really. There's no real definite to say that Liverpool are better than Arsenal. There's no real definite to say that Arsenal are better than Liverpool. I believe I'm going to back my team and say that I think we'll finish above Liverpool. Whether that means we're going to win the league or not, we can debate that later. But when you look at an opportunity that a player might have, I think between the two, he's going to go, where am I going to play more? And I think it probably would be Liverpool. Now, he does have a release clause. It's about £52 million. It's a hell of a lot of money for a player that's, let's be real, unproven. And if we were going to go for a centre-half, I'd rather go for the other one at Sporting Lisbon, which is Diamande. 19 years old, looks a little bit like a Kouyate type centre-half, actually, and would be a right centre-back cover for Saliba. So I'm not so sure where we're at. I don't know any ITKs. I don't know how big the rumour is about Inacio, but I do think it's a position that we need at right centre-back. And I don't mind that he can play in CDM. But where my big bugbear is that if we're going to go into midfield, I feel like the box-to-box midfielder is definitely something that we need more than another holding midfielder, which is why the Paulinho links are great. But let's be real. Are we going to need just Paulinho when we've already got Rice, we've already got Partey, we've already got Jorginho and Elneny that back them up? We're going to have 5 holding midfielders and only 1 box-to-box? I'm not so sure about that one, especially for the amount of money that Paulinho will be at 28 years old. Paying 80 to 90 million for someone is a big, big risk for Mikel Arteta. Now, I don't mind because I don't care. It's not my money. But I'm thinking about whether Mikel Arteta would do that, and I'm not so sure. In terms of a box-to-box midfielder, I think a better signing would probably be away from Douglas Luiz, away from Paulinho, who are currently Premier League proven but a lot of money. Maybe somebody like a Fofana or Kefren Turam, who are actually more box-to-box. might be the answer for Arsenal. Now, we're not linked with either of those. We've been linked with Douglas Luiz and Paulinho, not really heavily, if I'm honest, but apparently they're the targets for us. And that seems to me that central midfield is going to be a priority. Now, I understand why, because Partey has not been fit for most of the year. El Neni, likewise, is play one game, get injured. Jorginho's not getting any younger. And Declan Rice can't do it all, although, to be fair, he's proving like he can do it all. But other than that, a right-sided centre-back and a box-to-box midfielder, I think are definitely both options, as well as a striker that Arsenal still need. Whether you're talking about this window, next window, whatever. I still feel that we've got problems with Saka getting injured. I don't feel like we've got a right-sided winger that can come in. My number one would be Pedro Neto. A lot of people are worried about his injury record, which of course worries me too. I wanted Moussa Diaby or Kudus. Both of those are killing it for Villa and West Ham, which is a big shame. I wanted Maddison. We got Havertz. He started to kill it for Spurs, but a little bit like Neto got injured, which is what people said he probably would do. Luckily, I hope he's injured for the season now, without being too horrible to the lad, because he obviously is over at them lot up the road. But I will say that that has been a position for me in attacking midfield towards the right-hand side that I felt we needed. And although Maddison is definitely more of a central player, Diaby and Kudus definitely would have fitted the mould really well for if Saka, who, let's be real, hasn't been on fire this season, could have a rest. You bring in one of those two players. And then there's an option of fullback. And this one's a really strange one, guys. Mikel Arteta has said a couple of times, and there's been a few reports and sources reported that we're still looking at fullbacks. And the one that we've been linked with today is very, very similar to the Jurriën Timber link. Arsenal are plotting or considering a January transfer raid on Ajax for 17-year-old Yoel Harto. Now, I know absolutely nothing about him. I don't know if he's good, if he's rubbish, if he's promising. He's apparently a wonder kid. He can play at left centre-back and left-back. So it's a position that we are looking at for versatility again. But we already do have Kivior that can play left centre-back. We do have options when Timber comes back of Tomiyasu, Zinchenko there. But I feel like a 17-year-old who's a captain of Ajax, by the way. So he must have some, cojones about him, so to speak. I don't really know that that's the one that we want to be looking at. But maybe it's one for the future. It's LB's in the chat. Big up LB. The Sharks are coming, bro. Listen, don't tell me in one sentence that you're worried about Everton and then tell me the Sharks are coming, bro. I watched your game, man. I thought the second half you were smashed it, and I thought Phil Foden was out of this world. I must say that. Man City, you're still my tip, though, bro. You're still my tip. There's not much in it at all, is there? Let's be real. No one's running away with it, man. Big up to LB, man. Make sure you head over and support his channel. It's LB. Go watch his watch along. I'm sure it was fun. I watched some of the goals come in. I don't like watching the Man City goals that go in and seeing him celebrating, but it's always funny when he does concede. Big up to LB, man. Listen, is that something that we want to be looking at? I'm not so sure. Fullback for me has always been a bit of a worry in the back of my mind since Kieran Tierney was allowed to go out on loan. And it isn't because he was my favourite player and Dan's got an obsession with him and all this rubbish I hear. I liked Kieran Tierney, and for some reason, a certain section of the fan base used to find a real obsession over it and think that I was like in love with the guy. I loved Kieran Tierney. He was one of my favourite players. I loved everything about him. What my frustration was not that he was leaving, because players leave that you like. It was the fact that we weren't really, in my opinion, having any cover whatsoever. Because let's be real, Timber was brought in so that Saliba gets injured, Ben White or Tomiyasu can shift in. That's what the saying was. Or Timber comes in to be the right-sided centre-back. Now, I've seen Timber play at full-back, right and left, and he looks absolute mustard. So he's definitely a full-back, right? So that means that Timber and Zinchenko are the left-backs and Tomiyasu and White are the right-backs. But for me, you're either going to go and buy a right-sided centre-back to cover for Saliba, or you're going to go and buy a full-back and use Ben White as your right-sided centre-back to cover for Saliba. I still feel we're up in the air with it, man. I've got problems with Zinchenko defensively. I can't lie to you guys. I have. I love him on the football. I think he's technically gifted going forward. And I've got a lot of time for him when he moves forward with the ball. But defensively against Liverpool, it was a shambles again. We've conceded goals now against Fulham, Wolves, and Liverpool where he's been at fault. Either giving the ball away, either kicking it out for corners, either losing out on his duels or his battles, or just getting done one-on-one. For me, problems defensively there. And Kieran Tierney would have fitted the mould. Let me ask you in the chat, would you rather have Zinchenko against Salah the other night in that position or Kieran Tierney? Kieran Tierney, listen, Salah might still have scored. But I can tell you one thing Kieran Tierney wouldn't have done. He wouldn't have been looking at the ball for about 3 minutes in the air. He definitely wouldn't have showed Salah into his best, strongest foot on his left-hand side. He would have shown him down the line and he would have had to cross the ball to nobody in the box. And that's where I'm at with Zinchenko. I like him. It's not a Zinchenko hate. I rate him as a footballer. I really like him on the ball. But Kieran Tierney against Salah would have been beautiful for me. And everybody in the chat's agreeing. Big up to you, man. Listen, I don't know who we're going to be linked with. I don't know how much money we've got to spend. And I made that quite clear at the start. All I do know is that we need to strengthen. And if it was me and it could be a realistic and perfect window, not a realistic one, then of course I'd go get as Ivan Toney. I'd go get a Fofana in the middle as box to box. I'd go and sort out our right-sided centre-back issue with somebody like Diamande or maybe the Palace lad. Can't remember his name now. Anderson. I like Gehi, but he'll be a lot of money because he's English. I think Anderson, somebody like that would be good. And then if we could go and get maybe somebody to replace Saka, then of course I'd look at that. But when I think realistically about what we could do, the links to that Anacio sounds a little bit more realistic. Somebody who can probably cover two of the positions at centre back and in midfield. That sounds more realistic. I wouldn't be surprised if we did something like that. And I can't help but think in the back of my mind, if Arsenal have got money, please go spend it. Please, I beg you, please go spend it. Because last January, Jorginho and Trossard, it wasn't enough. As well as they did, Trossard scoring goals, assisting goals, Jorginho's last-minute winners against Aston Villa, that wasn't enough, man. That wasn't enough. So if we go and get Anacio, that isn't going to be enough either. So for me, I think we've got to do all we can to try and get Ivan Toney in. I think we've got to bring him in this window. I think we've got to try whatever we can with Brentford. It's clear he wants to come to Arsenal. I don't think he's made it any clearer by going on to Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett saying, I like to play Arsenal. I appreciate Mikel Arteta's football. I think it's the place for me that I can grow. Come on, man. Like, let's be real. That's pretty obvious, yeah? Chelsea, Spurs, other teams, maybe, I'm sure. Newcastle, maybe. I don't know. Man United, I'm sure, are all interested in Ivan Toney, right? He will probably leave in January or the summer somewhere. Chelsea are going to be able to give him more money. Chelsea are going to be able to give Brentford more money. But he will not want to go there, I'm sure. Tottenham, would he want to be going there? Would he want to be going in appreciation first team football? Possibly. Would he want to go for the money at Chelsea? Possibly. Would he want to come Arsenal and try and win the title? That's the one, I think. You know, if he come onto the diary of his CEO, let's say, and Ivan Toney said, I'm thinking about going and London is where I'd like to stay. You might think and go, oh, where's he going to go then? Maybe that's a money move to Chelsea, or maybe he wants to go replace Harry Kane at Spurs, or maybe he does want Arsenal. But to actually say Arsenal and name us and name Arteta as a manager he respects and name his kind of next destination or preferred destination. Come on, man. Let's be real. That is him saying, I want to come to Arsenal, right? That is basically him saying, I want to come to Arsenal. Guys, do me a favor. Make sure you smash the likes up, man. There's 200 people in here. I've only got 66 likes or so. Come on, people. Let's make sure we get that up. All you got to do is hit like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. So big up to you all for doing that. This comes in a super chat from Nikhil. Says, I think we need to sell a few in order to buy. Shouldn't just spend willy-nilly for the sake of it. I wouldn't mind a few loan deals. Just my thoughts. Now, Nikhil, I think it's a great shout, but loan deals for me sometimes aren't able to happen. And also, what is the level of quality when you bring a loan in? Now, don't get me wrong. If you bring a loan in like David Raya, and who else have we done in the time? Matt Ryan, we had at one stage. Was that on loan, I think? If we got Ivan Toney on loan with obligation to buy in the summer, I'm with you. But if we're just going to go and buy somebody that's no better than Reece Nelson on loan, we might as well just keep Reece Nelson. If we're going to go and get a striker on loan that's not really going to get ahead of Eddie Nketiah, might as well just keep Eddie. So I'm kind of with you in terms of what we should get and how we might need to sell players. I agree that we don't need to spend willy-nilly. I don't want to go and spend £200 million on trash, but I feel like our recruitment has been wiser in the last few seasons than it has been. But in terms of loans, sometimes it's difficult to do. I understand that January transfer window is difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to go buy everybody, right? But for me, I think we need to be trying to push this Ivan Toney deal as best we can, man. I really do. Let's try and take a couple more of your comments. If you've got any questions, whack them in now before we do head off. On the volley, says, financially, I think Arsenal are stable. I don't think there'll be future problems. You also got to factor in that we're being compensated for going into the knockout stage of the Champions League. And this is a great, great shout. £72 million Arsenal have got now from going through the Champions League. Some of that money will have to be spent. And it wouldn't surprise me if one or two faces did leave the Emirates. It really wouldn't. But I'm not so sure that we need to be gutting players out. It just seems to me that there will be options or potential considerations for a couple of players should we get any offers for that. My ideal, people are asking you, what would it like to be? Ivan Toney and Fofana would be two players that I would find very, very exciting at the Arsenal. I do feel that right centre-back could just about be covered, but I do feel like there's an opportunity there for the right side of centre-back and right wing to be covered, but I think they're more summer moves. I think the fullback situation when everyone's fit is okay. And also what we've got to remember is Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, those that have had injuries this season, which to be fair has been quite a lot of teams, they always do the same thing, don't they? They always say, when everyone's fit, we'll be fine. Name me a season where Arsenal have had everyone fit throughout it. I can't. I can't name one. And I'm not just talking about the Emirates era. I go back to Highbury. I go back to when we lost Vieira for 6 games and we lost Henri for a couple. I go back to when Ashley Cole got a knock or when Kolo Touré weren't available or if Pires or Bergkamp weren't able to fly. There was never in a game where everybody was fit to choose from. The difference back then was if Bergkamp and Henri got a knock, we had Kanu and Wiltord. Reyes would come on, bless him, if Pires wasn't about. Ray Parler would go cover for Freddie Ljungberg. We had Edu and Parler and Gilberto all in midfield if Vieira wasn't there. We had Martin Keown still around if Campbell or Toure had a knock. So Clichy was there if Cole got a knock. You know, we had some cover that was adequate cover. So I feel personally like there's definitely areas of strengthening. And I'm not saying that we're going to be ever that strong again, but what I will say is that that's how strong we need to be. Because the last time we were that strong, guess what happened, people? We won the league and we went unbeaten. So that's the levels, man. That's the standards. People will say, yeah, but look at Man City. When they have Rodri out, they don't have adequate cover. I don't care about Man City. I care about Arsenal. And I care about looking at where Man City are currently strong. And I want to be stronger than them. I don't want to compete with them. I want to be stronger than them. And the only way to do that is to raise the standards and go and highlight and target the best, the absolute best. Because let's look at it just quickly now. In midfield, in attacking midfield, and up top, they're strong, man. Haaland and Alvarez, Jesus and Eddie. Doku and Grealish or Bernardo Silva, Saka, Reece Nelson. Martinelli and Trossard, pretty strong, but they're as strong. Need to be stronger. So I look at it now and I think, yeah, there is a couple of positions Arsenal are still short. And I never thought we had the best window. A lot of people said we did. I never saw it, man. I really never did. Let's take a couple of questions before we do close. This one comes in from Mansa Musa. Says, would you recall Tierney as Bart Simpson can't defend Bart Simpson? I would have got Tierney. Got rid of Tierney, sorry, personally. I would have kept hold of him because I think he's the perfect cover for what we need. We need strength in depth, and Tierney is that. Now, it is really unfortunate that Timber got injured because, of course, he would be there to cover for him. But I was really disappointed, man. Really, really disappointed that Kieran Tierney was allowed to go. Let's take this next one from Kev. I wanted to end by moving on to tomorrow, and this is a nice segue. Trossard has to start tomorrow. Listen, I think he will. Kai Havertz is suspended, so therefore there's an opportunity for either Smith Rowe or Trossard to play into that 8, or of course Jorginho can come in to hold in midfield and Declan Rice is pushed forward. Let me know in the chat what you'd rather do. I would rather see Trossard there, but I will say this: he needs a good game, man. He really does, because I'm a big fan, but I haven't been massively keen on some of his performances of late. I thought he was okay when he come on at Anfield, thought he caused a lot of nuisance, but I need to be seeing better consistency from Trossard. And if he's going to be given the opportunity ahead of Smith Rowe, then he needs to kill it, man. He really does. This one comes in from Ross O'Connor, says, would you sell Ramsdale and Eddie? I would sell Ramsdale for 50 million or something crazy like that if it came in January. We would need to get a cover, but if you bought in, I don't know, a Casper Schmeichel type professional to come in and cover, then that's fine. Eddie, if we're going to be getting 35, 40 million pounds like Cole Palmer went for, yeah, I would, 100%. Imagine making 70 to 90 million on those two players. Then you go and get Ivan Toney, and then you're sorted. Do you know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it personally. Ryan Martin says we need a striker, a left-sided centre midfielder, and a left-back centre-back. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think we were talking about the areas that we believe that we are still short, and I quite agree. Here we go. Where are we? Here. Start Trossard over Martinelli and Jorginho in midfield. Look, there's definitely an opportunity for us to play around with it tomorrow, but I don't want to start messing around with too many positions. I like the fact that we're quite stable at the moment. I like the fact that we've got the opportunity for somebody to come in for Havertz, and we've actually got a couple of options. Well, that's nice. What I don't want to start doing is moving it around too much with the midfield. Declan Rice is going to want to have a good game tomorrow. I do think the way that he's playing at the 6, it would probably be foolish to disrupt that. So I think that we probably are going to see a straight drop of Trossard coming in for Kai Havertz. And tomorrow's going to be mad. Like, it really is. It's going to be absolutely mad. And the reason it's going to be is because they've got some players that can actually really hurt us. And I do not want to be seeing a smug face of Dan Lawless if they beat us, or even if they take points or we drop points off of them. Like, let's be real. Tomorrow, Kudus against Zinchenko is going to be a problem. They're going to target him. They watched Anfield. They've done their homework. Kudus will cause problems for Zinchenko tomorrow, 100%. Paqueta, a very good player, and one that hopefully Rice will have numbers of, right? Bowen, on fire, man. On fire. Scoring goals, playing in a number of positions, whether it be through the middle or left or right, covers a lot of the ground. I actually do feel like he could be a problem tomorrow. So West Ham come full of confidence. They've already got some big results. They've beaten at some big grounds as well, to be fair. They've gone to Tottenham and they beat them at their ground. I think they beat Chelsea and Brighton earlier on at their grounds in their season as well. So they've done well against the bigger sides, believe it or not. And David Moyes sometimes manages to do that, doesn't he? He comes and makes it difficult. It's not pretty to watch. It's counter-attacking style. But David Moyes hasn't beaten the big 6 away from home yet as a West Ham manager. Actually, I don't think he has yet as an Everton manager either. So I think there's some form of stat that suggests that David Moyes struggles. So we need to make sure that keeps going and we don't break that tomorrow. For me, there's definitely a weak link in the team, and that is Zinchenko, and everybody's pointing that out, right? But I feel when you look at what Mikel Arteta can do from there is look at not replacing him or bringing in Kivior, because there's no options, guys. We've got no Timber, we've got no Tomiyasu, right? I don't want to play Cedric there. So the other option you've got is to try and look at what we're doing around him. And Gabriel and Saliba and Rice have got to be a big part of that. And I've been so impressed with the 3 of them. And I hope tomorrow that we can see that. Martinelli as well, tracking back and helping. We've got to be seeing that. Big game for him, man. Big game. Starting to question the performances of Martinelli is something that I never thought would come out of any Arsenal fan's mouth, but it is. Why? Because it ain't really happening for him, bless him. I'm a big fan. I love his work rate, tracks back, he gives 110. But I need to be seeing some of the impact that he's having in some of the goals that we've got, because I can only really think of maybe a couple. One against Man City at the Emirates, maybe the other one was towards the start of the season. I don't think there's been many. Champions League, it's different. All our front four were killing it. They were scoring goals. We were free flowing. We were fluid. But I feel like there's many that are calling now for Trossard to come in and Martinelli to be an impact sub. Now, that won't happen tomorrow because we believe Trossard will probably be starting because Kai Havertz is suspended. But there would be a shout for Nelson and Smith Rowe tomorrow to come on and actually make an impact. And I'd actually quite like to see that more at home. I understand away at the Etihad or at Anfield, you might not want to throw Smith Rowe and Nelson on with 25 to go if you're chasing the game. But at home against West Ham, if you've got an opportunity where, let's say, you're comfortable and you've got 20 minutes left, they're the sort of subs I don't mind. I'd like to see more of Reece Nelson. I'd like to see more of Smith Rowe. So let's hope we do that tomorrow, man. Listen, people, do us a favor. We are not far off of 100 likes. We're literally 7 away from 100 likes. All you've got to do is smash the like button. All you've got to do is hit the subscribe. It's absolutely free and it's 2 buttons. You'll know it. It's the thumbs up. Smash the like. All you got to do is press the X on the live chat, hit the like, and then hit the live chat back up. It only takes 2 seconds and you won't miss anything. So we're getting there, man. Let's get it to 100 likes, people. Just let me know your predictions in the chat for tomorrow before we go. Let me give you mine. I am going to go for 2-1 Arsenal. I think we're going to concede. We always seem to at home. West Ham are a side that can cause us problems. I think this fixture's been 3-1 the last couple of years. And here to there has said 3-1 win tomorrow. I'm going to go 2-1 because I feel it's going to be a little cagier. Kevy Kev says Arsenal to win 3-2. Make sure you smash your predictions in before we do go. I'm going to go 2-1. Let me tell you the scorers. I'm going to go for Gabriel Jesus and I'm going to go for Gabriel Martinelli. Let's go for the 2 Gabriels, yeah? Christopher Ward says 2-0 Arsenal. East London Gooner says 3-0 Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Love to get a clean sheet, man. I really would, man. I really would love to get a clean sheet. Gabriel and Saliba and Rice deserve it. And that's when I want to end. Declan Rice. I want to see him mud all over the West Ham fans that have been crying about Arsenal signing him. I just want to see a fantastic performance and I want to see him doing exactly what he's done in every game so far this season. For me, he's been our player of the season. I would give him a 9 out of 10 if I give him a rating. He's been probably the only player that I would make question whether Saka or Martinelli are my favourite players. Declan Rice and, to be fair, Saliba and Gabriel have all put in performances that have made me think, yeah, there's a lot of love for you 3. I've seen consistency from the 3 of them. And I think the way that we are playing complements the 3 of them right now. Saliba and Gabriel have been the best partnership in Europe, in my opinion, not just in this Premier League. I can't see another one. If anyone can think of one, please put it in the chat. But for me, Gabriel and Saliba are the best partnership in Europe, in European football. And then I look at what Declan Rice is doing, and I don't see somebody else in Europe doing what he's doing on a regular other than Rodri. So I don't think it's mad to say that Declan Rice has been one of the better players. I'm not going to say he's been signing of the season because I think at the moment there's a lot of football to be played. If I was to put it now, there's a few, to be honest. I think Mohamed Kudus has probably been one of the signings of the season. I think Van der Ven and James Maddison, for what they were doing at Spurs, has to be spoken of. But I have to look at what Rice has done consistently. And for me, it's just been ridiculous, man. So we need to look at getting some revenge. They beat us in the cup. They knocked us out of the cup. And tomorrow, let's hope that we do that. We've hit over 100 likes, people, which is amazing. Thank you all so much for that. There's 250 of you or so in the chat. Make sure that you hit the like button. It does so much for the channel, man. It really, really does. I'm going to be back on here very, very regularly, talking all things Arsenal transfers, talking all things Arsenal news. So make sure if you're new, please subscribe to the channel. Arteta says we are short, people. So that means Arsenal are going to be set for a January transfer window that should be very active. So make sure you subscribe and keep in touch with all of the news that's coming in our way, and I'll be sure to be back on very, very soon. Until then, take it easy, smash a like on your way out, hit the subscribe button, which is absolutely free to do. Get us as close as you can to 13k, and we will see you next time, people. Take it easy. We're out of here.